So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint this really quick and easy tropical watercolor landscape in Procreate. As always, I'll list the brushes I'm using here in the description below. So as you can see, I've already got a sketch and a color palette placed in here, and you can download these for free in the description. I've just placed them here as the top two layers, and for the sketch, I set it to multiply. The color palette is still set to normal, and that's because it's kind of a little bit different this time, because you can see there's this kind of white frame around it. And that's because if we paint on a blank layer down here, below those things, it's going to sort of automatically crop it to the sketch. Now, it's not actually cropping it, it's just sort of being covered up by the kind of edges here of the white frame. And to start painting, I'm going to lay down some background washes for the ocean. So for the brush, I'll use the smooth dry round, and I'll start with this middle blue, so I'll do a long press to grab that. And I'll just fill everything down to line number 2. There we go. After that, I'll select the lighter blue tone, and I'll fill everything down to line number 3. And just to make it a little bit more irregular, I will do a couple kind of overlapping strokes here, just to make the colors less consistent. And then lastly, I'll grab the darkest blue color, and I'll just use it to fill everything down to line number 1. After that, we can do some blending. So for the blending brush, I recommend the Fluffy Water Blender. And I'm going to smooth this transition here pretty smooth. I want it to be pretty gradual. And then with the darker blue tone there, I'll make this one much more irregular, but also a little bit more abrupt. And then down here at the bottom, I'm just going to kind of carefully go over it, just to blend it a little bit. And it's important not to make this too irregular, because this is going to be the shoreline. Then to finish up the blending, I'll turn off the sketch, just temporarily, and I'll just go over it kind of randomly, try to smooth everything out, and also try to make it a little bit more interesting. Next, we can move on and paint the sand. And this is going to be on a separate layer, but it's going to be below the water layer. For the color, I'll grab this first kind of beige tone. And for the brush, I'll use the Fluffy Wash Brush. And I'll just fill this out just along the shoreline here. And I'm going to try to make this a little bit blotchy, again, just to make it more interesting. After that, I want to do a little bit of fine tuning where the water meets the sand. So the first thing I want to do is just brighten this area. So I'll make sure the water layer is selected. I'll grab the freehand selection tool, and I'll just select the area like this. Then I'll feather it out around 15%. Hue, saturation, and brightness, and I'll just brighten it. After that, I want to add a sort of detail here that looks like just the edges of the waves kind of lapping onto the sand. So for that, I'll make a blank layer above everything, and I'll set it to multiply. For the color, I need to grab the darker sand tone this time. And for the brush, I'm going to use the water stain glazing brush. And I'll just go over the shoreline here twice, just to create an interesting kind of hard edge effect. Now, I only want to keep the lower kind of hard edge here, so I'm just going to smooth out the top edge. So for that, I'll grab the water blender again, and I'll just smooth it out. It's optional, but you can use the arrow tool to kind of refine the position of the waves if you want. Next, we can move on and start finishing up the shoreline by adding the trees. And those are going to be on a separate layer above everything. And there's sort of 2 types of trees that I'm going to paint. So first, I'm going to start by painting some palm trees. So I'll grab the medium quill brush. And for the color, I'll use the lightest green tone. And I'm just going to rough out some kind of loose palm tree shapes like this, and I'll do 3 separate ones. After that, I'll switch my brush to the fine liner pen, and I'll use a variety of different shades of green to paint all the palm frond details. After that, I'll duplicate this palm tree layer a couple of times and just try to evenly distribute the trees along the beach area. After that, I'll merge all the palm trees together onto one layer, and then I'll duplicate it, and I'll select the lower one, and I'll just move it down because I want to make the palm trees even denser as we get to the bottom of the illustration. And to make it even denser, I think I'll create another copy. There we go. Then I'll make a blank layer that's below all the palm tree stuff. And I'm going to switch my brush back to the smooth dry round. And this time I'm going to grab this darker green tone and I'll just paint it on to fill out the white area down here, just to kind of give the suggestion that there's a lot more dense kind of jungle down here. And then just to increase the kind of sense of detail, I'll change to a darker green in a larger brush size, and I'll just kind of tap this around. And this jungle area down here looks pretty good, and you could leave it as it is, but I want to show you a couple ways we can improve it. So first, I want to create a sort of selection blending effect just to reduce the detail in this area. So for that, I'll merge all the layers for the jungle together onto one, and then I'll grab the freehand selection tool, and I'll just create a kind of random sort of tunneling selection that just covers these denser areas. Then I'll circle back. I'll feather it out just around 10%. Then I can go to my adjustments, Gaussian blur, and this is just going to let me blur the areas we selected. So I'll just soften them up so they look a little bit more abstract. There we go. And then lastly, you can use the hue, saturation, and brightness to shift the hue just a few percent towards yellow. And with the jungle finished, we can move on and paint the boat. And there's actually a couple tricks I use for that. So first, I'll make sure I'm on a blank layer above everything. And I'll start with pure white and the fine liner pen. And I'm going to draw the boat a lot bigger than it needs to be because we can shrink it later. So I'll draw the silhouette like this. After that, I'll switch my brush to the medium quill. And I'll use a couple different shades of warm gray just to add some details. And I'm going to add these details basically like lines, either going along the length of the boat or just horizontally across it. And then after that, I'll switch my brush to the background water blender, and I'll use it at a pretty small size just to go in there and smooth out some of these details. Obviously, we don't have to make this the details here actually like from a real boat. We just want to add the suggestion of detail. Then after that, I'll switch over to the liquify tool, set to push, and I'll just use it to sort of sculpt and kind of refine the shape of the boat. After that, I'll grab the arrow tool, and I'll shrink the boat down to the correct size and just roughly place it in the ocean here. And I want to add a sort of glowing sort of halo around it, just to make it look more like it's kind of part of the illustration. So for that, I'll make a blank layer above the boat, and I'll just use pure white again and the fine liner pen just to roughly follow the edge here. Then after that, I'll adjust the transparency of this layer just to make that just barely visible. And this boat is just sort of floating on this sort of super transparent water, so it makes sense that there's kind of a shadow that we're seeing on the bottom of the ocean. So to make that, I'll make a blank layer that's below all the boat stuff. I'll set it to multiply. For the brush, I think I'll use the Shoto brush just because it's pretty rough. And I want to grab this dark blue color again. And I'll just make a super rough kind of shadow shape like this. Now, where the shadow gets closer to the boat, I want it to be even darker. So I'll darken this color a little bit and just scribble it on there. And then I'll use the water blender to smooth the transition. And then to finish it up, I'll just use the arrow tool to kind of move around these different elements and just see where they look right. And at this point, the illustration is finished. We just need to get rid of the color palette. Now, since it's attached to the white frame, we can't just turn it off. So what I like to do is just go to the hue, saturation, and brightness and raise the brightness all the way to max. And this will make the color palette disappear, but we get to keep the white frame. And just like that, this watercolor landscape is finished. I think for me, I really enjoy painting these kind of flat lay top-down landscapes just because I don't have to worry about perspective. I think that also lends the whole process here to being a little bit more meditative as well. Another thing I want to mention is you can find a lot of these kind of drone photos on Pinterest of all kinds of scenes, and I think a lot of them would make great references for paintings. As always, if you think I've earned it, please give this video a like. And here are 2 more watercolor tutorials I think you'll love to watch next.